Is Thursday, December 19th, and this is a meeting of the Senior Center Site Selection and Building Committee. Sorry, one more person coming in. All right. So in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, public bodies otherwise governed by the open meeting law are temporarily relieved from the requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures have been taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by joining Zoom ID number 375-414-6055 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager, at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100, prior to the meeting during business hours. So I call us to order at 5:05 p.m. All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Okay, and then I think because do we have to roll call this if we're all remote, or is it only if we're hybrid?
I don't know.
That I don't know.
When it's all remote, I think you might have to call it.
Okay. All right.
Roll call.
So Ken?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
All right. And the chair says aye. Agenda is approved. We have approval of the minutes. As I say that, we have approval of the minutes, but I don't think we have any minutes.
I will get cracking on that this weekend.
Okay. I'm getting a notice from Microsoft Teams that someone's in the lobby of Teams. I'm a little confused by that because that's not where this meeting is. It's in Zoom. So I don't know who that is, but hopefully they will realize they need to come to Zoom. Okay. So I think the main meat of our meeting tonight is doing a budget update with the goal of authorizing the next steps, as we discussed during our last meeting, which are the OPM and the schematic design. So did everybody have a chance to look over that updated project budget that I sent out? And I apologize, it wasn't until I went to print it. I probably should have saved it as a PDF for everybody so it would have printed easier. I can go over it just briefly. So we, as we know, we had about $300,000 between ARPA, the Housing Choice Grant, and some leftover UDAG funds from the previous feasibility study. And so right now we have 277,000 of that left. And then we have things we need to withhold in terms of the final feasibility study for bill for John Catlin. He had mentioned being willing to roll that into the next one, but I did leave that in there. We have still yet to pay Ross Associates for the land and corridor survey, Goddard for the habitat assessment. As we discussed last time, National Grid has agreed to waive their engineering fees. We have $9,500 for deep borings. We did not put any money in for a traffic study. I think there was some hope that we could work with MRPC to get that a grant for that. Then I worked with Dan, and Dan, thank you so much for all of your work on this to kind of try and put some placeholders for the next things we're going to need to get us to town meeting, including any MISA or MIPA costs, as $10,000 as a placeholder for that. The same amount for water design being done by DPW. as well as I put in $15,000. Either that is the Susan Copeland said that that was the cost of a special election, the town meeting and the election. So we could also consider that contingency. We could also consider that potentially OPM funds. So that's sort of where I was putting those things, um, which would leave us with $202,993 for schematic design. And if you recall, his fee was $260,000 for that, but that he was willing to get us as far as we could go with what we had left, um, to keep the process going. Um, and that potentially is 202 plus the 10 if he doesn't, do that final billing. So I guess I wanted to see, have I forgotten anything in those estimates? And then, Dan, I reached out today to Vertex to see if I could get any sense, just a rough ballpark, and I got put in the voicemail queue. So I don't have anything specific for that. I just wanted to get a sense of how comfortable everybody is with that 15,000 number, if it needs to be larger, and then where we go from there.
15,000 for what, Katie?
So this is the money that we have left, the 277,000 is the money that we have left until we get approval at a town meeting of some
Right.
kind and then have the whole bit. So I wanted to make sure that before we go forward, we've got everything covered. So 15,000 is the cost of a special election. If we
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. And you talked to Vertex in order to get a sense of,
so I left them a message. So I don't have a sense for that, but
and
there's
a sense for what? What were you asking Vertex about?
what the cost of an OPM would be if we wanted to, because we need to bring on the OPM at some
I see.
point, to figure out what the cost would be
Yeah.
for just the schematic design portion of their services.
Oh, I see.
So I knew it was going to be 15,000 for a special election. I
Yeah.
don't know if we're going to a special town meeting, so we
Okay.
very well might not incur those costs. We certainly don't want to hold nothing back. So kind of in that category of 15,000, it could possibly cover one of the three things that I have
Yeah.
allocated there. Not all three of them, one of the three.
Yeah.
So, Dan, am I summarizing that?
Yeah, I think you did pretty good. And yeah, regarding the OPM, this has kind of been thrown around a few times, but technically with state law, we're required to have an OPM or assign one locally. And neither Matt or I, we are PEs. Potentially, we could be considered one. This isn't our bread and butter expertise, building construction and being able to, look at every nick and cranny and be able to identify what's best for the town here as this project moves forward. And the other thing is how much time do we have? So, I don't think either of us should be put in that position. And basically there's a process where we have to go out for qualifications and RFQ to obtain an OPM. And I think we should do this immediately and get that moving. Um, and basically set it up in a way that the OPM would be on board. We only have set up some funding aside just to get us through schematic design. And then, upon further funding availability, additional tasks would be approved. Assuming we get to town meeting approves it, then we could address additional contract amounts. So I think I was looking at this today, and we really ought to do that. The OPM, it's required by law. They'll support the best interests of the town. You bring them on the design phase, they review the design, advise, consult, look at project constraints. They'll look at, our public meetings. We've had concerns about size, budget, what can we possibly do? And they'll help kind of steer the committee in the right direction because they do these projects all the time,
Yeah.
building projects. So, I really think it's that time for the committee to do that. I know we don't really have a number set aside right now. I'm not sure how much it would cost for schematic design. It's not always set in stone. How many meetings do we have? How many meetings they attend? They'll review the design as it goes forward. So so there's a little bit of ambiguity there, but having some budget toward that, we should probably plan for and probably start rolling that ball now because you want to have the RFQ out for probably up to a month just because of the holidays, and then we'll have to review it and select an OPM.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think better sooner rather than later, to generate the RFQ and then to be looking. I know that John Catlin had put into the entire budget $400,000 for the OPM overall, and then $75,000 for the clerk of the works. Um, and I guess I think we need to be mindful of whoever we select for this small initial portion of the OPM would tend to be in the, bird's eye seat for the remainder of it, I would think, or not. But um, if so, we want to start looking at, do we want to look at, well, I guess how do you go about hiring a temporary OPM or a potentially small portion OPM before hiring the full OPM? Or,
So the state law requires you to go out for
yeah,
qualifications. So I think at this point we just go out for the whole shebang, make it competitive, and make the OPMs actually want to put in a proposal because they could get the whole job. And then we really just pick the best one, authorize only what we can at this point, which would be through schematic design, and then authorize any future work upon funding. So I think that's probably the best way to go. That's what I would do.
let me see. So you can put out a request for the OPM before you know you're going to have the money to pay them?
Yeah, we just would
Okay.
indicate that and make it
Yep.
clear that, you're only approved for task one. It's kind of like Catlin's contract that we're looking at now.
Yeah, yeah.
He has all those tasks in there, but we're only going to potentially approve one of
Okay.
them. Yep.
So, I know that in Wilbraham, they used a firm called P3 to work on who was the OPM for their project that they did with John Catlin. So that's another one that we could look at.
Didn't John say he could get, well, Dan Arts is there, but I'm pretty sure John said he had maybe offer three names at this point in time, John Catlin.
Yes, but I am mindful of the fact that the OPM and it is good that they have a constructive working relationship, but it's important for us to be mindful of the fact that the OPM works for us and not John, and that their responsibilities there may be some cross purposes there that would need to be worked out.
I didn't indicate that there would be any,
What's that?
I wasn't indicating that because John had the references or the names that there would be any connection to him other than that, just the names.
Yeah.
So I see. Okay.
So the way it would work too is we'll put together an RFQ. I could lead that charge and maybe a couple others and we would put that out and it has to be publicly advertised through the central register and all those different avenues so the word gets out. And then we could specifically send it to a few to make sure that they got word of it and make sure we get a few submittals.
Hmm. Okay.
So I would just, I mean, I agree with the whole concept that Dan laid out, and I guess I would think in terms of the percentage that it would most likely be $50,000 to $100,000 for this particular phase, if that's about a quarter of the work, but maybe not. Maybe running the project in the later stages and watching construction is 75%, and the early work is less. I just don't know. But
Yeah, I was thinking a lesser number, but I'm not sure. I think, we probably should just vet it. Um, I think we can still move forward at this meeting today if we're voting any remaining funds toward Catlin's contract and just kind of word it in a way that, we're gonna, um, have some money towards the OPM to be determined, and then any remaining funds would be toward Catlin's contract, something like that. I don't know. And we do have, you mentioned, Katie, the 15,000, which is potentially fluff, potentially needed for a special town meeting, if it would even come out of this budget anyways, rather than just the town's budget.
I guess the problem we have is how to phrase that additional funds to, the select board, or somebody else, in January to get some funding for an OPM.
So I think one way we could do it would be to make a motion to authorize Dan to issue an RFQ, knowing that we do need to do that part. Potentially that's even a higher priority than the schematic design. But they've got to, kind of go in hand to make the project move forward. And then reevaluate that when they come in. You know, it's difficult to know how to, and I think this is a great example of why we need an OPM that can walk us through exactly the order of operations.
And what would, in this initial phase, so we would want the OPM at first to review John's schematic designs and provide suggestions where they may be altered or cost savings might be. That is, what would they be doing to the schematic? What specifically are we asking them to do with the schematic design?
I don't think we have to ask them specifically what they're going to do. I think it would be eminent upon them to give us a scope of work as part of the RFP, would request a scope of work.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Done in the past. But the first thing they're going to do, interestingly enough, is they're going to look at everything we've done so far. And they're going to tell us, yeah, you did it right. You got this far without me. But we have to have them say that, I guess, as part of the.
yeah, you're right, Ken. They won't just look just at the building, but all the other items we're doing due diligence on too. And they've been through this with their experience, so they'll be able to identify, hey, you might not have thought about this, or hey, maybe there's some value engineering you could do maybe by changing this and things like that. And as we go forward, they would help steer us and guide us.
Mhm. And do we want to get a sense from the OPM now as to what if they were to be, if they were hired on for the whole project, what the ultimate cost of that would be? How do we get a sense of that? Just ask them?
Yeah, I think we would include that in the RFQ. We would have a probably, I'll have to look how it's set up, but I think it's typically a non-price proposal and a price proposal when we
I
review
see.
it. I don't know if that's how it'll be, but we would include a price for everything, but it would probably be broken out by task, schematic design, give us a cost for that, and then so on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
What's going to be important when we interview the OPM is to, let them know where we are right now, who we're working with, how far we've got and stuff like that, so they can take their price to them. They may assume that we've done nothing. We have to be very clear about what we've done and where we are finishing the feasibility
Yeah.
study. Because in most cases, they're hired even before the feasibility study.
Hmm.
So
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I don't mind taking the lead, putting it together. Would you or would someone else want to work with me, check it, and make sure we hit every
I think
cross
Dave
every
Smith
T, dot every I? What's that?
I'm pretty sure Dave wants to work on it with you.
That's, I mean, I'm comfortable doing it, but I don't know if another committee member might want to.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to all take a look at it,
Okay.
double check it, because any one of us could come up with an idea, I guess, along the way.
Okay.
It would be nice to be able to, I think Katie had a good idea reaching out to somebody who could at least say, you're on the right track, and, here's I'm pretty sure they'll have a scope of work that they've already put together. That would give us an idea. We may
Yeah,
have gone through their phase one. Their phase one could be different than what the feasibility study is when I'm getting it. So they may be able to check that off and say, here's where you are, we can take it from here. Go from there.
All right.
So,
So
sorry, Dennis, go ahead.
does anybody need a motion for something or for the drafting of the RFQ?
Yeah, I think we want a motion to authorize Dan to issue an RFQ for the OPM for schematic,
issue it.
limited to schematic, or not limited to schematic design, but with tasks broken down.
Okay. I move that the committee authorize the DPW director to issue an RFQ for the purposes of vetting potential owners, project managers for an initial cost not to exceed, is this where the 10,000 comes in?
No,
Or,
you can't put a cost in there now.
okay, so
I'll
just to issue the RFQ.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll second everything except the cost.
Okay, period.
Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay. All right. So roll call voting. Ken.
Any discussion
Oh, yes. All right. Sorry. Discussion.
by the rest of the committee? No? Carolyn, if that's something, no?
No, no discussion. Okay. All right. Then, Ken, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay. Dave,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Carolyn,
Aye.
and Dan,
Aye.
and Bonnie. Oh, she says aye via chat. All right, and the chair says aye, so that motion passes.
Thank you very much
Wonderful.
for offering that.
Thanks for doing that, Dan. I think that this is
Yeah.
a pretty important step. I mean,
You're welcome. I think I wish we did started a little earlier, but we got to get on it. So get it
Yeah.
moving now.
Before I let it go, I should have brought it up during discussion. Dan, Arts, does Catlin have any scope of works from other OPMs that we can review? Is he there?
I don't personally have anything that I have, but I think John might. We can take a look around to see if we have get you a little bit of an estimate.
I've found a couple from other towns that have done this exact
Okay.
same thing too. So I think I got some good templates. And thanks, Katie also helped me find a few. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Dan, of course, I'm happy to help you with that. I'm in town early next week, but not the week between Christmas and New Year's, but I can help you work with that in the meantime.
Yeah. Same here. Okay.
Okay. All right. So then in order to, again, keep moving forward, we can stop here and say that we aren't comfortable moving forward with the schematic design contract until we know more about what the OPM is going to cost. Or we can authorize enter a contract to enter into schematic design with Catlin Architecture not to exceed these remaining costs plus the cost of the OPM for this phase. I think we could do it either way. I think it's whether or not we want to know that that has the potential is moving forward, or if you want to wait and save that for another meeting. Thoughts?
Anyone else? I have a comment. So have you talked to John about the actual base amount that he's willing to get down to of the 260 that he proposed?
So he's willing to work with us. And he has seen the same costs. This
Okay.
he was copied on that. Well, he was copied in the one from yesterday. I just updated it slightly. So obviously I need to, loop back around to him to know, but I mean, that number was roughly the same yesterday. So and he was aware that that was the number.
So my question to John is then, I just took a quick look at the contract again, and the contract basically consists of all the phases.
Mhm.
Does he then have an addendum to that or a signature page that separates the total? It says we're authorizing phase one. Is it a chance that it could end right there?
Sure. So yeah, that would be if there was a vote tonight to authorize the committee for that, that would be our next task, would be to get the correct contract for that phase. In that dollar value.
but if
So like I said, because
I
we don't
guess-
know what that dollar value is, we could do
So-
it.
So Ken, was your question if we do not get town meeting approval for the rest of it, where does that leave our responsibilities to John?
Well, the reason I'm asking the question is the contract you gave is similar to what we had for the feasibility study, but this contract consists of all the phases.
Mhm.
So it gets to 1.3 million at the end when you add them all up. The question was, if you only do phase one, can we just, is there a subset to this that says, or an addendum that says, this particular time, the committee is only authorizing, phase one, the awarding authority, which is not obligated to do phase three, unless town meeting approval.
So it looks like he put language right at the beginning, right on the, second line down of the first page about only schematic being funded. The other phases are based on funding availability.
Okay.
Um,
Section, these two contracts approved for 6, 1, all right, cool. I missed it. I just went right over it. So that's fine. So he's already got a couple.
Did we ever bring this up before? I think you might have, Ken, but the phase one schematic design is exactly what we have in our original contract.
It's the whole thing is, you go from phase one to phase two, there's 2 or 3 lines and each one of them are the same. Community groups, all this other stuff, monitor program, blah, 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 whatever it is. So everything's a leap of faith. Yeah. The cost estimates go right through the whole thing too. Every phase, we're updating the cost estimates all the way along.
Mhm.
But you're right, it's very similar. So we're basically saying it's 6.1. According to what it says here. Approved for only for 6.1.
I guess my question is, should we have been getting some more services for that original contract because it's already in the schematic design. It was in the original proposal, kind of exactly what's in here. I think you might have brought this up at one
You
point.
brought it up, we'd asked them that before.
Yeah.
And because it's a feasibility study and it did include some of these pieces, but in a concept way, I think it is what it is. It's just.
Hmm.
What is included that we don't have? Can you give an example, Dan?
Give me that again, sorry.
What is included in the original contract that was supposed to be done that we don't have?
So we got everything done in the feasibility study, but what Dan is pointing out, some of the language in this next phase includes the same language that was in the feasibility study. So is there a duplication, I guess is the question.
Yeah, like were we already supposed to have these services, like develop schematic design alternatives and review with committee. So we'd have various alternatives as opposed to just kind of that one drawing we have now. But
I think he kind of did it, because as we walked through it, we did look at different options, and we looked at 2 or 3 different sites. He did that. This does not talk about the sites, which was in the, talks about the site plan drawings, but not the site selection. So a big part of the feasibility was working on the site selection with him and developing the parking lot size and, traffic on the street and a lot of that stuff. So
okay.
And I'm not apprehensive about the feasibility study. I think that's fine.
Okay.
It's supposed to be an addendum. Isn't there supposed to be a fee schedule in the back, attachment or something? It's not here either.
So I think, but I think, so what Katie, you're proposing, it's not to execute the contract at like right now, but it's basically to set aside the funds toward it. Right? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Yes, so you could word it in either way. We could set aside the funds for it, or we could execute it up, authorization to execute it up to a certain dollar value. but we can't pick that dollar value tonight because we don't know about the OPM.
Yeah, and I think we're really recommending it, would it be to the town manager, right? Because Robert can sign these,
Right. Yeah.
right?
This would be above what we could sign. So when I talked to John just briefly yesterday, his concern was, just the timing, being able to let his folks know um, that we are moving into schematic design in order to stay on the timeline that we had asked for. So, with the holidays coming up, I'm not really sure how much is going to be done before the holidays anyway. Um,
Yeah.
so I think if it was authorized up to a certain dollar value, it would at least be good faith that we're intending to proceed forward with the schematic design. But like we said earlier, we really don't know how much the OPM would be. And so it may or may not be realistic to authorize that because it may be at a dollar value that isn't workable.
Yeah.
I, you got the contract there, Dan, or does anyone else have it besides me? I guess it's.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to that 6.1, which is the designer services for schematics phase one, he in the middle of the thing, I highlighted it already, but in the very middle, it talks about the respective cost estimates as set forth in the scope of services included as attachment A, but there is no attachment A to the best of my knowledge. So the way I see it, Katie, is that this still needs a little massaging to tighten it up. One of my concerns.
I don't see the attachment either.
Yeah, so the other thing that I'm curious if John can provide, and I don't know if if we're required to ask this under law, is that he does have to carry all these, sub-consultants. Are we entitled to get a schedule of value of the sub-consultant work? So, for instance, the site contract, the site, the mechanical, electrical, structural, those pieces to see that the total, and then his services, of course. So you end up with a total of 260. So we then have a pretty good idea of what each of those pieces is, those professionals are working on it and their value. And the billing would come in accordingly. So when the structural engineer finishes, he sends in 80% of his work and we authorize it. But it talks a lot about the awarding authority, which is us having to look very closely at this. And he also owes us a schedule that we have to agree with. He provides. So I think he needs a couple more weeks to look this over and get more detail. That's my thought.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
So
I mean,
maybe
Bonnie or Carolyn, do you have thoughts on Zahari or Ellen or Dave?
I agree with you guys. I don't really have anything else to add.
Me too.
Yeah.
Not my area of expertise.
Yeah. I've gone into projects before where the people were not specific about certain things, and then it was really hard to go back and double check and confirm things. And I do feel the money is tricky, and it just kind of feels very loosey-goosey to me right now. I do want to get Catlin working as soon as possible, but having the OPM such a question mark, I just don't know how quickly we can do that. But I'm willing to go with it, but I would feel better if we had more T's crossed and I's dotted, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So do we want to wait on that until we have an update? Dan and I were both trying to reach out to OPM, getting a little bit better sense of that. And then we can always have a meeting early in January if we feel like we're comfortable that there's enough funds for both, or if we need to switch directions and talk to the select board about more funding, well then we're trying to get to their meeting on the 21st.
Um,
I think also you could do that, and we can do a better review of the contract the way it is too.
Mhm.
Also,
yeah, and I think that being a novice here, I think that the distinction between the phases of the project has gotten muddied. Where does conceptual design end and schematic design begin? And where does schematic design end and final design begin? And what's the distinction in those drawings? Or what's the substantive distinction in those drawings that the people could understand? As opposed to, and again, you pay 3 times for the same set of drawings, so you want to be, what, I think it's important for us to be able to explain to the public at large, this is the different phases of the development process, and this is what we were paying as each phase was completed and then the new phase began. Because in my mind, and it's my ignorance speaking here. I'm unclear as to exactly where those lines are.
I don't think it's your ignorance. I think it's a matter of fact. It's unclear.
Okay. Oh, I guess there's some solace in that.
Yeah, but when lucky or scared.
And Bonnie is saying in the chat that she agrees with understanding the contract more in relation to what we've paid. All right.
The point of fact is, when we take this next step, we're really starting to spend.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Ken.
When we take this next step, we're really starting to spend some serious money. So
Yes.
we really have to have a clean understanding. When we did the feasibility study, if you recall, whatever number of bids we had Catlin and another architect at the same price, and I think the other two were within, let's say, 20% of them. So we kind of knew clearly from the bidding that we were in the ballpark, and we felt comfortable with that, being right there where we're supposed to be.
Mhm.
This may in fact be the right price too, but there's too many loose ends for. We need a couple more weeks to grind it out, or at least another week. Skip next week and start the week after, whatever you want to do. But and we need to know we're the authority, I think, but we're not the signatory of the contract. Specifically, who signs it? I think it's the Board of Selectmen. I wouldn't speculate on this one. So it's going to rise right up to everyone's going to see it. Is what I'm getting at. Needs to see it. So we should be tight before we get it there.
yeah.
So, Dan, assuming, when do you think we could be interviewing the potential OPMs? Do you have any sense of that? Like, are we talking the end of January, beginning of February, or?
Probably, hold on, I'm looking at a calendar. The stupid holidays are gonna screw us up. So we really, once we issue it, you want to give them probably 4 weeks at least. So yeah, we're probably beginning of February.
And then
maybe late January.
And we'd want to interview 3 of them, perhaps, give or take.
Yeah. That's what I would think. And we can try to do it as hastily as we can, but we obviously want to make sure we do everything right.
Yeah.
But in order to keep things moving. And I don't know, like maybe Catlin would be able to get going before the OPM's on. And by the time he's got some drawings or something ready for review, the OPM's on board. But we're kind of threading needles then, moving things pretty quick. And
yeah,
I don't know if we really want to, I don't know if we want to do that, but I guess, for now, I think we're in kind of a good spot where we've sort of pushed forward with the OPM. That's great. And then we'll review the contract, get that tightened up. And then, and Katie and I can work on, getting a good understanding of a budget for OPM just for the schematic design portion. So we kind of tighten up how much money we really have toward the Catlin contract, and then if we might need any more.
And then in
Mhm.
terms of, I agree with Dan that seems like a good plan. And then in terms of the timing for the schematic design, if our timeline was correct, and Bonnie, thank you for all your work you've done on that. That was about a 6 to 8 week process. Dan Arts, I don't know if you can confirm that. So we still have time
No,
for that piece. So
no, Dan should comment, but I understood it to be way longer than that. More like,
just for the schematic piece?
well, so the interesting point of the schematics for all of us is that's when we are going to be part of the process of determining what is in those schematics. Thus far, we haven't. We've just looked at concepts. We're going to be digging down at that point to determine some specifications and whatnot. So that's when the committee is going to be working really hard for cost savings or whatever the case might be.
Okay.
So it's going to be a lot of give and take there. In other words, he's not doing the drawings and then handing them to us with everything on them. We're going to work our way through those drawings.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would push a couple more weeks onto that. Later, probably maybe pushing 12. But
12 weeks. Okay. So Bonnie, can you update that document, our project timeline? Because we don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the way it's on the timeline, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
That we can, yes. Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. My video is not working. So on the timeline, it has, so the 30% for building schematic design is basically out to like mid-February. So I guess one question is, have we, what, I guess of that 30%, have we, completed 20% of it, 25% of it? What constitutes 30%? That's one question that I have. And then the 60%, I have the timeline kind of starting, because of the town meeting thing. I have it starting in March. Oh, actually
Mid-May. Yeah, that was
mid-May. Yeah,
after the
mid-May.
election, after
Right.
the special
Right.
town.
Right. Because after town meeting, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the 30% is the schematic design. We haven't done any of that yet. So if that is actually 12 weeks, then that needs to extend. That would go then February, March, April. Now, if we are going to bring the OPM on first, and that would take all of January. So if you can move that.
So move the bar out to April.
So make the bar longer so that it takes up 12 weeks of time.
Okay.
And make it start in February and make it end in April. So
Okay.
all of February, all of March, all of April. So that would be 12 weeks.
Okay.
And so that end of that then would then butt up right against the beginning of the design development, the 60% level.
Okay. Okay. So just to go back, I'm a little confused. So what we have now, what is that? So what are we calling that now? What we have?
The feasibility study.
Just the feasibility study. So nothing. Okay. Okay.
So that really could read conceptual design, or it could read feasibility study completed.
Okay. Okay. So because I did write the conceptual design completed if prior to that bar. So
Right.
that we can keep that. Okay. All right. All right. Got it.
And
Got it. Thank you.
I could put, tomorrow just look a little closer and put together the OPM schedule so you could add it in there.
Okay.
Bonnie.
Yeah. That'd be good, Dan.
I have a question about the town meeting. Because it sounded like until he has schematic drawings, and and has his estimators look at it. He doesn't really know what the cost of the building is going to be. He said it could be more, it could be a lot less. But I mean, if we go to town meeting and we ask for 16.6 and then he looks at the schematics and it's 17, and what do
Well,
we do?
we wouldn't do more. We would not do more. We would target for our
Okay.
budget.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, Dan. Wouldn't we give you guys a budget, and as we're designing it, we're kind of looking at that and hitting it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think that I mean, we have to stick with this. I mean, politically and otherwise, we have to, I think, stick to the 16.6 number. And if that means having to give up some of the ad alternates or value engineer it or forego some of the niceties perhaps in the short run, that's what we'll have to do. I mean, my hope is that the conservative estimation that was done, combined with the fact that the ad alternates are already included in the 16.6 number, combined with any savings that we can generate from, what we set aside, that we're going to be able to get at 16.6 or perhaps under it. Uh, but I think we have to kind of tell the community that we're still at 16.6 or no higher than 16.6.
Okay.
And Ellen,
But-
I think that's why we're talking again about the schematic design contract now, is because it was always the intention to have schematic design completed before we went to town
Right.
meeting, so that we would
And it's
have that
kinda- I
additional
mean-
level of certainty.
It seems like we'd have to have some kind of assurances that as it's continuing to go on and we go to town meeting, God forbid something happens and it's not approved, or it's not approved in election, we'd have to have some kind of assurances that we wouldn't be on we wouldn't have to continue to pay for the design, right? We would stop the design at that point.
Mhm.
So that's why the contract is broken out into the schematic design, the design development, and the final design. That 260 is what would finish through the schematic design, which we wanted to get done before town meeting. So you wouldn't be on the hook for the whole 1.3.
But is he going to be able to finish the scenic design? I mean, that schematic design before the town meeting at this rate?
Well, so Dan just confirmed for us it needs to be about 12 weeks. So that's the why we want to get the OPM on board so that we can move forward with that.
Yeah, we probably should back out on a calendar and see where kind of the start day is, because town meeting, the warrants due at the end of March
Mm-hmm.
with your price. So
So it sounds like you're saying that's the regular town meeting in April though, right?
Mhm.
right.
So it sounds like we're not going to be ready for any kind of a special town meeting. Is that right?
I mean, it looks increasingly like that's the case, yes.
Okay.
I think it was very important, the meeting we had last week when Mr. Catlin offered, to go. Well, first of all, he pointed out to us that you really can't go to the cost estimator with what we have for concept drawings. You need schematic design to get to the real numbers. It's also going to be the step where he's physically, the sub-consultants, I keep wanting to say subcontractors, but the sub-consultants will be talking to the actual people who do the work and saying, what's going on with mechanical equipment today? Has it gone up 15% from last year? Is it about the same? I can tell you right now, steel is down. I've watched commodities. Steel is down 15% in the last 12 months. So that won't hurt us. But probably everything else is up. So it gives that's the step where we're going to fulfill the need to get some kind of accurate numbers that we can feel comfortable with. And I think we all have the same goal, Dennis. We want to bring it in under that number. There's no question about that. So when we get to the specifics of certain parts of the building, we'll be depending on Catlin and the sub-consultants to tell us, can we save $1 here on some of these finishes? Or can we, whatever the case might be, work on each piece?
Well, and wouldn't the OPM be doing a lot of that?
Could be, yep. They will make recommendations, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just concerned because the timing seemed tight even before. And now that we have the OPM issue, it seems really tight. But again, the sooner we start, the more likely we are to meet some of these deadlines.
Right, that's why I wanted to make sure that we were talking tonight about and getting the motion to issue the RFQ for the OPM and then potentially for schematic design, but we've decided to wait on that piece. So I think that does help us continue to move forward.
Okay, so we're gonna get the OPM, we're gonna move forward on that. And when's the earliest that we can meet again to see about possibly following up on the schematic contract?
So, I mean, I would recommend perhaps the week of January 6th. We're definitely going to want to meet either the week of the 6th or the 13th, because if we want to update the select board at all on January 21st, we would need to have met before items for the packet are due on the 16th. So if we want to provide them an update that we've, issued an RFP for the OPM, or, and I think the Friends of the Air Seniors are intending to go to that meeting on the 21st as well, to ask for permission essentially to fundraise for that project, for our project. So
And
Yeah, I think maybe the week of the 6th, if people are available.
Yeah, the select board's not meeting on the 7th. We could steal their spot. No, just a thought, but I think I'm pretty open.
Let me look at my calendar.
And can I request, Katie, Dave, can I ask you a question, please?
Of course, you can ask me a question.
Well, through the chair, because I'll do it for him. I have an idea that we need to develop what's called a working group, a subgroup on the contract. So I'm wondering who we could get together, maybe only 3, 4 of us, less than a quorum. So it doesn't require the open meeting law requirements. And go with Dan. So Dan would obviously be one of them, maybe that'd be 2 other people. Would it be Katie, you, and then maybe Dave, if you're interested? And the 4 of us sit down and we just go through that thing like for 2 hours and go through it step by step.
What about Jim Bernard? Unless, I don't know, is he still on the committee?
He's on the committee, yes.
yes,
He doesn't come to meetings. I don't know. That was just a thought. Doesn't matter if he's not gonna come anyway. That's a good idea, I think, Ken.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea.
Yeah, I'm available. I got to drop my son off at school at 8. I'm available anytime after 8:30 and before 1.
So that way we can put it together as a subgroup, come back to the committee and say, we've ironed out these details. Then it would be ready for a vote. Instead of waiting for another meeting is what I'm getting at, to go over it again. So it's a
Yeah, that's a good idea. Get some things done offline.
yep. Happy to work with you guys on that one.
So the 4 of us will work out some date and
Yeah,
figure it out. Okay.
maybe it'd be better to meet a little later or middle to later that week of the 6th, just to give us some time. I know, Katie, you're off, right? Between Christmas, New Year's. I am too.
Right. Yeah. The
Really?
6th will be my first day back.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to, I mean, if you guys can meet earlier, if you're back the 2nd or the 3rd, you guys are welcome to meet. Otherwise, we could meet earlier in that week. And then if the committee met maybe on the 9th, does that work, or is that still too tight? Or we want to move the committee meeting till the week of the 13th?
Keep the committee meeting as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think the 9th's good.
Could start with just Dave and I. Dave and I could start looking at it
Okay.
together.
Just let me know. Okay, give me a call and I'll
Yeah.
we'll set it up. I can meet you and we can go over it and look at it and then make our recommendations to Katie and Dan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could just go right to the senior center and use the table there or go to the line, anywhere.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
But when do we have to request to be on the, at the meeting for the selectmen?
The 16th. So that gives us a full week from the 9th. Okay.
Dennis, you interested maybe in meeting with us on that contract?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to help with that if I can. Just let me know when you're gonna meet. I don't want to hold up the process. But I'd be happy. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do that.
So why don't we start with a small working group of Dave, myself, and Dennis, and we'll try to shake out like the first piece. And we'll broaden it to the next working group, which would be when Dan and Katie come back, as soon as they come back. And again, Dave and I would bring it to that, basically. And just,
Great.
if we have to call John in the meantime, we'll call him, and just see what, if we don't want to go, we can't go too far afield, so what he expects is a contract either. So,
And my goal coming out of this process with this contract and with the OPM RFQ is that we will be able to explain to the Board of Selectmen and the general population in Ayer what the different phases of it is and what we're getting for each phase of the development. And I think it might be helpful for you and Dan to hear from me and Dave, just because
Yep.
I have kind of a novice's view of the thing, so I may have some of the questions that the general population, something that just makes sense to you because you've done it before, might not make sense to me or the general population because we haven't.
so we all have printed copies, right? You handed them out. Oh, no, Dave didn't get one because he wasn't there last week. So we need to have a printed copy, Katie.
Okay.
Hand off to Dave. Dennis,
put one-
printed copy already, right? Because we
Yeah,
got,
I have a copy of the contract that was handed out last
Yeah.
time we met.
so we'll all have at least one in front of us, is what I'm getting at, to make notes on and stuff.
Yeah.
Dave, do you want to drop by and pick one up?
Yeah, I can come by tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. I can come by tomorrow, sometime tomorrow during the day.
Awesome. Perfect.
I'll
have
come
one for
grab
you.
it.
Then
So
it'll be clear when we look at it together where we see questions will come up or things that need to be resolved. And then I'm on board with Dennis. This has to be so clear what we're doing next. We can't go.
what's that?
It has to be very clear what we're doing in this contract, this phase, and in the future.
Yes, yeah, I agree. And I'm sure Robert and the town attorney would appreciate the clarity as well.
That's another point. It has to be reviewed.
Okay, so
All right. So next meeting, December 9th. And in the meantime, there's going to be a subgroup getting together to discuss the contract.
You mean January 9th?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
January
it's kind of hard to do a December 9th meeting.
So true. All right.
We got a year, we got a
9th.
year.
Sorry. And in the meantime, Dan's can do a little bit of additional looking into the OPM fees and the RFQ, and I'm happy to help with that.
Yeah.
Bonnie's going to update the schematic portion of the project document, and then and get the Dan, you're going to get the OPM schedule as you learn more about that to Bonnie for that, and then for the project plan, and then the subgroup is going to discuss the contract. So that seems like good steps, and we have authorized Dan to issue the RFQ. So that is good forward progress.
What time, you guys like 5 o'clock? Is it, we're going to continue with 5 o'clock?
I would prefer 6 o'clock on that day if possible.
Doesn't
Just
matter to me. So,
and is
I'm
that going to
good.
be
I'm
in
good.
person?
yeah, we can do that one in person. Thank you for working with us today for this one. The senior center is decorated and decked out for the holiday party, so I can't put tables together here for us to have met tonight. And the finance committee was supposed to have met in town hall, though they did cancel. So, so thank you for your flexibility to meet remotely tonight. But yeah, going forward, we can go back to in person.
What did you say, Dan?
I said I'm good. Yeah, 6, 5, 6. That I'm open.
Okay,
Whatever you want to do. We're doing 6, you said? 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 works better for me if that's okay for
Yep.
everyone else. Yeah. Okay.
all right.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead, Dennis.
obviously the timeline is being pushed. A special town meeting sometime at mid-February to the first week in March seems increasingly unlikely.
Mhm.
And the schematic design being pushed out for what, 12 weeks. I'm just thinking about this out loud, what is the likelihood of groundbreaking in, late fall, early winter of 26 now? Is that still kind of an aspiration that we still think we can get it done, or?
2-5, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry, of 25, yeah. Is that still possible?
Well,
I
you and
think
I,
we have to
we can
look
get
at,
a machine from DPW down there, you and I, and figure out something. Anything's possible.
I think a lot of it's going to depend on what the OPM has to say when they get on board, So I think we can't get too far ahead right now with that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Before you close, can I put Dan Arts on the spot for a second
Sure.
through the chair? So Dan, have you heard, John would tend to add a few pointers as we have these meetings. You are, noticeably quiet about this stuff. Is there anything you'd like to add to the discussion or found controversial about what was said?
Oh no, I typically don't deal with contracts. That's John's thing, so that's why I'm a little bit more quieter here. Especially tonight, I got all 3 of my kids going around. Zoe, hold on one moment. But yeah, I don't really have any other comments on that.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'm back. I had lost you guys for a second. All right.
All right. We don't have any public with us for public input. We have discussed all the things on our agenda, including next meeting. Anything else before we adjourn?
Do we?
I just want to say that I'm setting up a public information, a table at St. Anthony's Church after the 4 p.m. Mass, Sunday Mass, Saturday Mass, 4 p.m. Saturday Mass, which has the highest number of seniors. And we'll just put up a table and give out information. And that will be, I'm recommending that for the 18th of January. And then on the 19th, we'll be at St. Mary's for the 8:30 Mass and possibly at St. Anthony's that same day for the 10:30 Mass. Anybody would like to join us?
Oh, that's
You know.
great. And I would just, because Katie and I ran into this last night, actually, that when you're at both of them, because parishioners move between the towns, that it would be good for you to kind of indicate that this information is aimed at Ayer town residents, just to kind of make sure that the public's not getting the idea that it's a Shirley, senior center.
Right. To add to that, Dennis, we were at the girls and boys basketball game last night, and we were kind of chuckling because we were asking people, "Oh, do you live in Ayer?" As they were going in to weed out the Gardner folks. But there was maybe 3 people who answered yes to that question, so we were not sure whether there's just more Shirley athletes on the basketball team than Ayer, or if they just didn't want our pamphlet. So that's also possible. But we did go, we represented, we responded to the select board's desire for us to reach the younger segment of the population. And we will do that again in January at another home game. So, little by little.
We
Well,
had,
do you think it'll be a problem to do it in Shirley?
Well, I know that there are a number of Air residents who attend the 4 p.m. at St. Anthony's in Shirley. All I would say is that when conversing with the people or when asking them to take the flyer, that you make that distinction clear. Um, because yeah, just to avoid any kind of misunderstandings.
Yeah, and I was going to say the concert at the middle school, and the middle school happens to be in Shirley, seemed to be full of Shirley people and not very many Air people.
Hmm.
Well, you know, we have time to change our mind if we want to do something different.
I still think it's a good idea
I
to
do
get
too.
and,
Yeah,
and
because you're going to catch a lot of Air residents at the St. Anthony Mass,
Mhm.
and you may catch some Shirley residents at the St. Mary's Mass.
Yeah, well, St. Anthony's is much more accessible than
Oh,
St.
sure is.
Mary's. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's why you get more of the seniors who go there.
yeah.
I forgot to mention this before, but in the history of the town of Air, the place to give out information, I think we all know where it is. It's the transfer station.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's funny, we haven't brought that up yet.
Yeah.
Who would we
That is
talk
the
to about
number
getting
one
permission
place
to do
talk
that?
Dan?
Oh, yeah, actually, Dennis,
Number
you had asked, and
one.
you know, we could, you can go up there and do some soliciting. I've, other groups have done it before. I think just send me an email and I'll coordinate with Andrew, make sure there was no one else there. And, our big concern is just safety and making sure we're nobody's in a harm's way anywhere. But yeah,
Transfer station is number one.
Oh, what's the best day to do that?
Sundays are the busiest day there, but Saturday and Sunday are, Saturday's a close second. Sunday is number one because the Patriots stink now.
Any particular time?
Season's gonna be over pretty soon.
Okay. Bonnie, you said that you would be willing to go to the transfer station for that?
Yes, I I go up a lot on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Yes, I would be willing to basically stand in the cold and talk to people.
I mean,
Okay,
that's a long time to be there. So, I mean, if we did like 2 hour shifts or something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because in January, it's, depending on the weather, you're going to get.
Yeah, or break it up, maybe go up for an hour, go home, warm up, go back, just
Yeah,
go
yeah.
back and forth.
The busiest traffic is like 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. till close.
Yeah.
Anything before 8 a.m. is really no one. It's pretty quiet, much quieter, but 10 to 3 is your busiest.
okay.
I'd be willing to go too.
I think we'll all chip in. It's a fun thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
really,
It shows a real commitment if you go out in the cold weather. That's a real commitment.
we have a bulletin board up there too, if you want to, post a flyer up in that. I don't know if we've done it already, but
All right.
Okay,
And I just updated the 4-page flyer to include the new cost estimates based on the new tax rates. So if anybody has leftover flyers left over from other public outreach you've done, you can recycle those, and then we will hand out the newer versions.
okay, good.
And
Hey.
do you know when we will be on the capital planning agenda for an upcoming meeting? I know that we were not on it last night.
they didn't set a date last night for any specific for the senior center. I was at the meeting, so I don't know.
Okay.
I can follow up with Robert on that and see if he knows.
Do we have to go back to finance too?
Yeah, I would think
Some
eventually,
point,
yeah.
yeah. I think the next capital meeting was going to be January 8th, that Wednesday. And just a brief quick update. Natural Heritage, we scheduled the meeting with them. It's January 14th, 11 a.m. on Teams. So we're doing that. So hopefully get good news. So,
And what the 2 words we want is no take?
correct.
Okay.
2 words means so much.
14th.
Yeah, 14th. Yeah.
Katie, I have a suggestion on the flyer.
Yes.
The picture so the photo at the top showing the front view of the building
Yes.
is elongated. So somebody had stretched that out. So it looks longer than it really should be. So I'm thinking just to fill the page, right?
I don't think it was elongated.
It-
Let me open it as,
So I look at the car. So because I looked at the photo, compared to the photo that there was another 2-page.
oh, I do see the car on the left. Okay, let me take a look at that because in the presentation I had cropped in, but let me take a look at that.
Yeah,
I
so
see now that you're
so it
saying
is a
that, yeah.
little, because I looked at it based on, so I went to the Belmont Senior Center and took a look at the front of that building. And so and then I looked at our photo and I'm like, oh, so much longer. So I think if we take the image showing exactly like the size, it will be a little more, like people won't think it's so big, right?
Yeah,
When you see it,
I'll
when you look at it.
agree. Yeah, I'll take it out. It didn't look stretched last time I looked at it, but I see what you're saying. I will go back and take that picture out and reinsert.
Okay.
And make
And-
sure that it's correct
Okay,
proportion.
okay. Yeah, I think it will look more to the correct size. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Awesome, thank you.
thank you. No, thank you. That's great feedback. All right. Anything else before we adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Right. Ken
Aye.
and Dave,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Carolyn,
Aye.
Bonnie.
Aye.
All right, the chair says aye. We are adjourned at 6:16 p.m.